Jason in Michigan's a theist who wants to say that just because there's suffering doesn't mean there's no God. Is that correct, Jason?
Yes, that's correct.
I agree and have never said otherwise and would chastise anyone who says otherwise. You can't prove there's no God merely because there's suffering.
Okay. Then I was saying that I had heard briefly your previous comments toward one of the other people and saying something about the kids with cancer and suffering. That's all I caught though. But I do believe that there is
Yeah.
a God, and I do believe that it's provable.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely interested in hearing proof that there's a God, but not only did I not suggest or even hint at the fact that kids with cancer is proof there isn't a God, I was pointing out the absurdity of thinking God's sending you hidden messages in four-leaf clovers, but isn't, replying to families that are suffering in other ways. That doesn't make any sense for a lot of different types of God. My position, by the way, is not that we can demonstrate that there is no God. It's that nobody has demonstrated that there is. And so it sounds like you're getting ready to do that. So, Jason, the floor to prove God exists is all yours.
Hmm. Okay. And yeah, my apologies. I only caught the tail end of that conversation, so sorry for taking it out of context. I believe that the proof that God exists is the creation, the finely tuned creation that we have, and the huge improbability of it ever coming about by anything other than an intelligent designer. Much like if I walked into the forest and saw a neatly set table with glasses and water and food and a knife and a fork, if I saw all that in the middle of nowhere in the jungle and somebody told me nobody had ever been there, that table would be proof that the person was wrong, that somebody had been there.
You know why?
Why?
Because all the evidence that we have is that a table set for food is the result of humans. Every table you've ever seen that has been set for food has been done so by a human. You have zero evidence that that can occur naturally. That is not the same as a universe. We have no other universes to compare it to. You can't look at the universe and say, oh, this had to occur because of a God. And it doesn't matter how improbable you feel the universe is, you have to show that God is more probable if you're going to even go down the road of saying that's the more probable explanation. So, how probable is God as a creator? And how did you reach that conclusion?
The way I reached the conclusion that God is probable is the truth of the things in the Bible that were written by ignorant shepherds thousands of years ago who were not scientists and had no um no education or no training in the things that they were discussing, that weren't figured out by actual scientists until thousands of years later.
Like
I
what?
think that's evidence. Like, okay, so there used to be a period of time where people thought the earth was flat, and there's a scripture in Isaiah that says God sits above the circle of the earth. Nobody has
Yeah,
been
but
up high enough to say
Jason,
that but God.
But it also
Jason,
says that there's a tree from which you can see the entirety of the earth. Is that possible?
Where does it say that at?
I'll look it up.
so while
Yeah, I've
while
never
you're
heard that
while you're looking
scripture.
that up, Matt, Jason, are you into hermeneutics? Like, do you read a lot about hermeneutics?
Not much, no. I'm familiar with it, but I don't read very much about it.
So there's a word when it's actually, I believe, in the verse in Isaiah that you're talking about, if memory serves. Although I could be wrong. It could be a verse in Exodus, or it could be the original Genesis verse that talks about when God spreads the heavens out, right? And I've seen a lot of creationists or Christians in general talk about how, oh, this is God talking about how He's spreading out during the Big Bang. It's the expansion of space time. But the word that God uses when he's talking about like separating the sky from the earth, right? He talks about the firmament. He talks about the firmament being kind of what separates the waters above from the waters below. And the word that he
Yeah,
uses for that is a word called rakia. And rakia
yeah.
is used only to refer to solid objects such as metal, glass works, things like that. Every other time that it's mentioned, at least to my understanding, in the Hebrew Bible. Is there a reason God might talk about the firmament being a solid dome over the earth if he didn't mean that it was a solid dome? And furthermore, is there a solid dome over the earth?
Well, I think that the reason God mentioned it the way he mentioned it is because that's the way he created it. And I think that there is definitely a solid dome over the earth separating I have to believe in the firmament. I believe there's a solid dome over the earth separating the waters above from
Right
the waters
now?
below, just like the Bible says.
Right
Yeah,
right now, I just want to be clear. Right now, you think there's a firmament above the earth.
I'm glad I asked that
I
question.
do.
Okay, Erica, this is all yours. I'm going to take a quick break.
Yeah, I mean, golly, do you? I feel like the first thing I have to ask is like, do you believe that we've been to space?
Absolutely not.
Okay, all right. Do you believe
There's
that
a
the Earth is?
there's an interesting song by Red Hot Chili Peppers called Californication, and in the lyrics he says space might be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. I don't think that it's I don't think that it's a coincidence that what NASA claims comes from outer space directly coincides with the actual video technology that they have. When we look at what they said was space back in the 60s, it looks like the same technology as the movie of Martians. And then when we look at what they say is outer space now, it looks like one of the latest astronaut movies with one of the latest actors. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that
So,
the word
so
NASA
first of
in
all,
Hebrew means
seen,
deception.
we've seen impact events, right, on stellar bodies, but like this is a much better question that I have to ask. Where do the
Sure.
craters come from? The craters on the surface of the Earth, like because a
Yeah,
meteor can't presumably get through the firmament, I would imagine. So where do the
I
craters
would
come
imagine
from?
so too. That's a great question. And why are there never any parts of asteroids in the craters?
But there are all the time, and they're in museums, and we've seen impact events happen today. The Tunguska event is a very famous one that was caught fully on film.
And this is just from my knowledge, I'm not an expert on this issue at all, but every crater I've seen that is supposed to have been from some asteroid at some point in time, I have never seen the asteroids. I've seen the craters. And I think craters can be explained by geysers in places that there used to be water. I think there's a lot of possible explanation for craters, but I don't have a definite one.
So I've got to just tell you, like we find asteroids like meteorites in craters, and we find them all the time. Like there's hundreds of meteors that make it through our atmosphere, or at least make it to the atmosphere every single day. I've seen some of them myself, right, streaking across the sky. There was a viral Twitter video 2 days ago of a meteorite impact that or a meteor impact that happened in oh shoot, I think it was Portugal, right? This woman is recording herself, and she looks up, and a meteor goes streaking across the sky. Right? They know where it was projected to land. So I'm
And
like
they found where it
so
landed.
curious. I don't know about that one, but I know about the Tunguska event that they knew precisely where it landed because it left a giant crater. It broke everybody's windows within like a 50-mile radius. Everybody's windows in a 50-mile radius was broken by the Tunguska event, and there was a massive crater that blew out every tree directly radially out from where the impact actually happened. And this kind of thing, there was a
I'm
woman that was hit by a meteor like within the past 150 years. She's like the only person that's ever been struck by an actual meteor. It was a very small one, but she was actually hit by it. Like where are
How
these
small was it?
falling rocks coming from?
Well, see, again, I don't have enough information. I'm very skeptical. I am more skeptical than most scientists who claim to be skeptical.
No, you're
And
not.
I would have to do, I'm very much more skeptical than most scientists that claim to be skeptical, yes.
No, you're not.
But
You don't
I would,
understand what skepticism is. Why, if you have no expertise and you're reaching conclusions about this stuff, why should anybody listen to you over a scientist and the data?
I never said anybody should listen to me. I said I don't have enough information about asteroids to give any kind
You've
of
reached a
definitive answer on them.
conclusion about the shape of the Earth and asteroids while acknowledging that you don't have sufficient expertise to warrant reaching a conclusion. That's not skepticism, sir. That's not even in the
What's
ballpark of
my,
skepticism.
what is my conclusion on asteroids?
I didn't say you made a conclusion on asteroids.
You just said that I reached a conclusion on the shape of the Earth and on
Right?
asteroids with zero
No,
information about it.
no, I said on asteroid impacts. Or at least I thought I said
I,
asteroid impacts. If I didn't, that's what I meant. My apologies.
So
okay,
so
no,
I
no
just
problem.
I
But
would
even
just like
asteroid
to.
impacts, I haven't made. Well, I just want to say, clear for clarification, just I've reached a conclusion on the shape of the Earth, yes, but on asteroid impacts, I've said I don't have enough information to know. I can make a guess, but I'm not educated enough on that subject to make any kind of definitive statement or take any kind of definitive position on that. I don't
But
have
you
any
are on
kind
the
of.
shape of the Earth?
I believe what the Bible says about the shape of the Earth. Yes.
Yeah, but
What shape is
that's
the
not
Earth?
skepticism, sir. That's you believing
I,
dogma.
well, a skepticism when it comes to humans, biblical. I'm not skeptical about the Bible. I'm skeptical about
Oh,
the
then you're not
television, the
being
news.
skeptical, and you're not more skeptical than a science if you're not being skeptical about the Bible. Skepticism doesn't cherry pick what it's going to be skeptical about.
But you can also be more skeptical in one area than other people are.
You can be, but that doesn't mean you should be. Skepticism should be skeptical about everything.
I would disagree. I think the Bible is the thing that we
Well,
can
you're
trust the most
wrong.
in this
I'm
world, and that's when
telling
we should
you,
be
as
skeptical
somebody
about.
who's been a skeptic from the beginning, you can disagree with me about skepticism, just like you can disagree about the scientist, about the shape of the earth, but you are wrong and demonstrably so.
So
I
I'd
am.
like to interject here with a story that I really
Mhm.
feel you need to look up. I think you need to look up the tale of Anne Hodges, who was struck by a meteorite that multiple people saw that crashed through her roof and left an enormous wound on her side. She survived it because it only caught her on the side. But they like this is something that happened in recorded human history that actually impacted a live human, and then we have hundreds, if not thousands. And I know this because I just went to the Wikipedia article where you can sort by, or you have to manually sort it, but known craters and known meteorites that were found within those craters, including the Tunguska event. It was seen by numerous people, and it wasn't even the only meteorite that they found in the Tunguska Basin. They found all sorts of little miniature bolides that also were of extraterrestrial origin because they have a composition that only meteorites have, high amounts of iridium, right? Like it, I've actually, Jason, I've never heard this take before that meteorites aren't from space. That's actually crazy to me. Can I, if may I ask, how old do you think the Earth is?
Well, let me ask you a quick question before I answer that, if you don't mind. Do you think that
Yeah,
all the people that have seen apparitions or images of Jesus Christ, do you think that all those people and all those documented events and recorded incidents, do you think that's proof of God?
No,
I don't, and I can
And
guarantee
why
you
would I
that the
think that
number of
meteors are proof that there's not a God, or that
because
that the actual meteors are coming?
ten
because meteors, I'm going
because
to mute
tens
you. Go
because
ahead, Erica.
tens to hundreds to thousands of people, including myself, witness meteors every single night, right? As they streak across the sky. Hundreds of people have worked with meteors, probably thousands have worked with meteors, and at least hundreds of people, especially talking about like just because I know it the best, the Tunguska event, have seen streak through the sky and crash, and then they have recovered the meteorite that created the impact event. These are events that are so ridiculously common that you can buy a telescope, Jason, go to like Black Mesa State Park, set it up, and you will see meteors streaking across the sky. Or I bet you could go to a museum and see an actual meteorite, and you can see how their composition only matches other meteorites. So let's just take a step back and imagine from a scientific perspective that meteorites, the rocks themselves, come from Earth. Why does every single meteorite of, and within their given category of like stony meteorites or whatever, but within their given category, why do they all match? They're all over the world, various sizes, right? Various time periods. Sometimes they're, millions of years within the rock. Sometimes they're on the surface. And yet they all have the exact same composition. And when new meteors come, they match that composition too. And that composition doesn't exist anywhere on the planet by natural means. Like, where would they be coming from? I'm sorry, that's wild to
And,
me.
and I'll unmute you here in just a second, Jason, but it's important to point out the absolute epic failure of skepticism and reasonable epistemology. The number of every single person who has an apparitional experience that they attribute to Jesus is concrete evidence that people have experiences that they attribute to Jesus. It is not concrete evidence that their attribution is correct. And similarly, as we observe meteors and begin to investigate them, that's concrete evidence that there are meteors. That's not concrete evidence of their origin. Erika has just gone into the similarities and not to mention the fact that we have geosynchronous satellites orbiting the oblate spheroid Earth, not the flat Earth, um, and that everything about mathematics and gravity and I'm going to guess you don't believe in gravity, since that's part of what gets thrown out too. But if you
Well,
think that the
you don't
fact
need
that people,
gravity.
if you, sorry, what?
According to Occam's razor, you don't need gravity, just density.
No,
No,
and thank you
no,
for
you
demonstrating denseness for
definitely
sure.
need that.
But gravity is the description of mass's interaction, and the mathematics of gravity, everything from the accretion disk from a sun that leads to the potential formation of planets. You just when I took you off mute, just before we could even get to anything substantive, you just asserted we don't need gravity. Where is your expertise and your evidence that suggests that gravity isn't real?
By my observation, that a pencil will fall when I let go of it, not because of gravity, but Occam's razor says the fewest
No,
amount of
sir.
steps to a conclusion.
No, sir. No, sir. I'm going to mute you again. First of all, you're not going to misrepresent what Occam's razor said. Occam's razor says not to multiply entities unnecessarily. You and I can both let go of a pen and observe that it falls in a particular direction. You do not get to assert that that is not a demonstration of gravity. You have to prove that it's not a demonstration of gravity. How do you prove that me letting go of a pen and it falling down is not a demonstration of gravity?
Am I unmuted?
Yes, that's what happens when I ask you a question. It's then your turn to talk. And because I'm an expert who's done this for 20 years, I know to take you off mute before I ask you the question, which is why you also heard a beep. So what's your demonstration that a pin falling to earth is not a demonstration of gravity?
Because it's more dense than the oxygen around it. That's why it falls, not because of, I don't need gravity to explain it.
I don't even know where to begin with that. And let me guess, you do you
Is
think
it
the
not
Earth is
true that dense objects go down and helium is lighter than oxygen, so it goes up?
Well, why does it go down, sir?
Because it's more dense than the oxygen around it.
It's more
Sure.
dense than the oxygen around it. Why doesn't it go up? It's more dense than that too. As a matter of fact, as you proceed into the upper atmosphere, it becomes less and less
That
dense.
was my
Why is it
question as
moving
well.
towards the thing? Why is it moving towards the thing that is more massive and more dense than the area that is less massive and less dense? Why is it going that direction?
Because dense objects go down, less
No,
dense
sir.
objects go up.
No,
Where's the
sir.
gravity
No,
with the helium
sir.
balloon?
There's absolutely nothing in the
No.
realm of science. There's nothing in the realm of physics that say dense objects go down. When you're talking about buoyancy, which is essentially what you're doing, and whether or not something denser will float or whatever, that's fluid dynamics, and it would suggest that things would float up because they're floating towards the least dense. So your model is absolutely flawed because you don't understand either what the science says about density or buoyancy or fluid dynamics. And you're doing all of that in order to dismiss gravity with your flawed understanding of Occam's razor. You have it absolutely wrong. You are engaged in what I would call fractal wrongness. You are wrong at every conceivable resolution.
Can you explain to me then why gravity doesn't operate on a helium balloon, but it operates on, say, a table?
Gravity absolutely operates on a helium balloon, just like everything else. The gravity is the interaction between events relative to both the distance between them and proportional to their mass. When you see a helium balloon rise, it's not because it has defied gravity, but because the helium, its buoyancy carries it into the upper atmosphere. It is still there is still the force of gravity acting on it, directing it towards the largest mass around, which is Earth. In the same way that we can launch a spacecraft out of there, we can provide sufficient acceleration such that we can escape gravity's pull on that object that holds it to the Earth. This is all like kindergarten and first grade science stuff, maybe a little bit more than that, but
You're
yeah.
comparing
You
a
know,
I'm not
space
even a
shuttle to a
scientist.
balloon with no jet propulsion.
What was that?
I said it sounds like you're comparing a space shuttle and a lot of gas to a balloon with helium in it that has no kind of jet
Yes,
propulsion pushing it against what you're
I compared two things that both can demonstrate that they can overcome the default pull of an object and the Earth towards each other. You can either do that by filling the object with a gas that causes it to be buoyant, or you can do it by propelling an object with a gas that gives it enough speed to break past gravity's pull. It's not the same thing at all.
You're saying it has nothing to do with the fact that the helium is less dense than the oxygen around it?
Jason, I literally just explained to you that the helium is providing that buoyancy because it's less dense, and there are other ways to overcome the pull of gravity as well by using a fuel source.
Jason, why is gravity consistent? Why is the pull of gravity a consistent measurement, regardless of what's being dropped, regardless of where it's being dropped on the surface of planet Earth, excluding extremely high heights?
Why does a
is
feather
gravity?
and a
I'm not
bowling
sure that
ball,
gravity.
why does a feather and a feather in a vacuum and a bowling ball fall at 9.8 meters per second squared near the Earth? Why does it, are they equally buoyant? Are they equally massive? They're not.
The
Your
mass of a
model is
bowling ball
flawed,
is
and
more
this
than
is
the mass.
no, Jason, this is embarrassingly bad. This is the basics of science that you are I can't even take you seriously, and I apologize for that, because I'm not just sitting here, it's not my goal to go, oh, here's another prank caller, here's another troll. But when you don't know the basics of buoyancy and you're using that to deny gravity, when you don't know the basics of science and you're using that to deny gravity in order to hold up a notion of a flat Earth, you are beyond preposterous, and I don't know how to continue from here.
How is it, if the Earth is curved, that we can see directly across flat water, which is always flat? How can we see lengths? How can we see buildings at distances that should be hundreds or even thousands of feet below the curve of the Earth? How is that possible if the Earth is round?
First of all, Jason, the Earth is huge, so that's why over short, like very small water bodies that happens, but over large water bodies, and you can see this yourself with offshore wind turbines, right? Like on like wind farms and things like that. What you're talking about does happen. The height of the wind fan actually does disappear below the curve. You can see this for yourself.
I would
I
recommend you
have,
go
and
over to
what you
my,
also see is you could pull
I
out
would
a pair of
recommend,
binoculars.
I would recommend you stop talking. I would recommend you go watch my friend Simon Dan's channel, where he explains this stuff over and over and over again. Every time some scientifically illiterate flat earther demonstrates, but you remember when the flat earthers put together, they were going to go out and try and measure, whether or not there was a curve, and their
The
measurements
laser
showed that there
pointer.
was.
Yeah, the laser pointer and
Yeah.
the platforms. Yeah, I know the one you're
They're
talking
like,
about.
oh,
Yeah, Jason.
it lines up and it comes out exactly what the math shows for this. I mean, we've known this since before we understood anything about electricity. Eratosthenes measured the curvature of the Earth by using shadows of sticks and shadows in wells. We did this before we could turn on a light bulb. The fact that you in 2024 are using a cellular device going through geosynchronous satellites to communicate to us that you don't think gravity is real, that the Earth is flat, that there's not a curve. This is embarrassingly bad. If you want to call yourself a skeptic, everyone should point and laugh.
The distance
Thanks for the call, though,
that
Jason.
people are able to.
Nope, you're done.
Holy mackerel.
I have my limit
You know
for
what,
flat
Matt?
Earth.
You know what, Matt? When you got up, so when I brought up the thing about the firmament, my hope, the reason I brought it up in the first place was because I thought he was going to argue that the Bible predicted the Earth was round, and I was about to be like, no, no, the Bible actually says that the Earth is flat, and he was like, yup, the Bible does predict the Earth is flat, and it is. And I was like, oh no, this is
I
not where
just
I thought we were
realized
going.
I mentioned the verse that says there's a tree, and you can see it from anywhere on earth. This was in a one of Nebuchadnezzar's dream. It's in Daniel 4:20. So everybody should be
Hey,
able to remember that one real easy. Daniel 4:20 says, "You saw a tree that grew so big and strong that it reached up to heaven and could be seen from anywhere on earth." That's not possible on a sphere,
well, there's
but that's
there's a verse
okay.
as well. There's a verse as well that says that pi equals 3 and that the earth is set about on the
There's not.
the pillars, right? Oh, is there not?
No, Sam Harris included that in.
Oh, I
I
didn't know
called
that.
him out for it a couple different times.
No, that's
What it
good to
says
know.
is
That's good to know.
what it says is that there's a well that was constructed, and when it gives the dimensions of the well, it gives its it doesn't say circumference, but it gives its roundabout measure and its
Right.
across measure. And so they're doing that to say, oh, it says 3 cubits and 10 cubits, and that suggests that pi equals 3. But
Oh, I
first of
see.
all,
I got you.
it's not giving anything about radius, diameter, or circumference. And it's possible that, and people have done this with a diagram, it's possible to create a well with a lip that is such that there could be a diameter of 3 on like the inner dimension, but
Right.
the
I see what you're saying.
roundabout thing could be 10 because of the thickness and everything else. So somebody could have been given, and you got to remember, we're talking about people who were measuring things in cubits, based on, a distance like this. So nobody was saying anything about pi.
Okay, that's good to know because I've definitely repeated that one before.
I did too until I was like, oh, hang on, hang on. But
No, no, this is the
yeah,
this is the wonderful thing about being corrected because then you can be less wrong in the future.
exactly.
Hello, I'm Jimmy Snow, executive producer for The Line and avid candy eater. Hey, if you'd like to support this channel, you can do so now on Patreon or as a channel member with tiers specific to supporting specific shows and hosts. And it also supports our ability to expand programming going forward. You could also leave a super thanks down below, get a little special highlighted comment, and I'll tell you what, you could hit like and you could hit subscribe. Now, here are some video suggestions so we can fudge that algorithm. Go with one of ours. Forget everyone else on YouTube. I'm begging.